Time is now 6:37. We'll go ahead and begin the meeting with a moment of silence and then a pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, go ahead with roll call.
Renee James.
Present.
Tragic McCoy.
Here.
Zedric Barber II. Edward Canuli.
Here.
Margaret Shepard.
Here.
Julius Wiggum. We have a quorum.
Okay, item 3. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Good afternoon, Board. Jeff Gagnon, Assistant Director of Community Development. I do have a few additions and deletions tonight. First, I want to make note of the fact that on Tuesday, the City Council did take action. That action consisted of removing Mr. Barber from the Board. He was replaced by Mr. Blackwell. Additionally, there was a motion to appoint Mr. Gallen to the Board as a full-time member. Mr. Gustafson has been appointed as the first alternate, and Mr. Brown is the second alternate. At least 3 of the 4 individuals are here tonight as well. So I propose that we add, room number 4B to allow for board member introductions. And before 4B, I propose that we add 4A, and that would be for the approval of absence notification. This is something that's come up, and I'll provide the board with a memo to kind of really fill everyone in on the intent of this. However, our code structure requires that absences are approved. So what we're going to do moving forward is just identify anyone that provides notification for absences and present that to the board. So for tonight, I did hear from Mr. Wiggum, who had a medical issue. So for 4A, I would ask that we take note of that and approve that absence. The only other thing I want to make note of is we do have the nomination of chair and vice chair on tonight's meeting. So being that the new board members haven't been sworn in yet, they can't actively participate. So it may be something that the active board wishes to postpone for one meeting, but that's at the discretion of the board. And that is it for additions and deletions.
Okay. Is there going to be a motion to approve that, the additions and deletions, or we don't need one?
I think under, under Roman numeral 4, just the general disclosure and adoption of the agenda. Under the adoption of the agenda, I think these additions and deletions will be automatically inserted.
Okay, so moving to item 4, board disclosures and adoption of the agenda. We'll do that.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I just had a question about the sequence of events that we're addressing. You know, first we have the applicant, and then on item 10A, we're having a workshop, which I'm assuming is going to lead to some kind of an adoption of new standards for for overstock and discount stores. I guess my question to you is, shouldn't we do that first in terms of getting it either adopted or not adopted down the road? And before we approve another.
Right. Yeah, I understand your question. I believe that it's staff's current approach that the applicant we're reviewing tonight under unfinished business had applied prior to any discussion of a moratorium taking place. So the application is being processed as so. I do understand your thought process. However, I don't think that any action taken in the future workshop item could really be implemented in regards to their site plan application.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so disclosures by board members. Are there any disclosures?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Item 6A and 6B, I spoke to a representative from the Equitas Management Group, or representative of the Equitas Management Group.
Are there any other disclosures? Okay, Jeff, could you restate, you said 4A is going to be the absence notification?
Yes. So 4A was a board approval of absence notification. And the intent of that, again, was to have formal record of the board accepting the absence request. So tonight we had an absence request from Mr. Wiggum.
Are you looking for a motion on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I move that we accept the Mr. Wiggum's absence and his reason.
Is there a second?
Second for discussion. Just so I'm clear, Mr. Gagnon. So this is a regular occurring thing and we don't have any, only when there's absences, or is it, how does it work?
Moving forward, there'll be a static item on the agenda where you'll see it every time. So the same way that we have an unfinished business section, all the agendas moving forward will have approval of absences for board members. It was something that had been discussed and not formally implemented, so that's why it's an add-on for this agenda. But moving forward, it'll be a recurring process each meeting.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
So is there a prescribed method in which a member has to inform someone? Is it to staff that they're going to be absent, or is it to the chairperson?
The way that it's written in the code, any board member is supposed to inform the secretary of the board. I would assume that it's me being the primary administrator of the board itself. So I would provide any information I receive to the board during the meeting. The way I see it, so long as we're notified, then it's probably something that should be accepted unless it's a recurring issue. So we just want to have something formal on record so it's common knowledge that the absence occurred.
Just a follow up. So is it, I guess the memo will spell out what will be notification of what is considered notification. Is it, anytime, 12 o'clock or earlier on the day of the meeting or something of that sort? That'll be spelled out in the memo?
Yeah, there'll always be an emergency situation that could arise. So long as it's not habitual and reoccurring, I don't think it'll be an issue, and I don't think we have any board members where absences have been an issue. But what I'll try to do in the future memo is kind of delineate our code structure and what it prescribes, and we can kind of come up with our own process that's acceptable to the board moving forward as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
One moment. I need to turn the gavel over to the vice chair as I step out to take an important call.
Any other members, questions of the absence notification? Well, can we, Mr. Gagnon, can we defer voting on that item until, or can we table?
Yeah, technically I think we'll have to recess momentarily because currently we don't have a quorum.
Okay. We stand in recess.
Hey, Michael. Nice to meet you, Jeff Gagnon. Thanks for I'm guessing you didn't get a chance to get some more. Other three new board members are here as well, so I think it all just got. Okay, fair enough. I appreciate you being here as well. Had the opportunity to do some stuff just to choose to.
So since we're off, so I can understand, even a discussion can exist without a quorum?
It seems, is there a motion on the floor?
There is.
So technically we're supposed to be handling the motion, so it just made more sense to just briefly pause.
Okay. All right, thanks.
You currently still have
Call the meeting back to order. We were currently handling a motion in a second, and I think it's appropriate that I pass the gavel back to the chairperson since I seconded the motion. Madam Chair?
further questions or ready for roll?
Yes.
Renee James,
Yes.
Chad Coy,
Yes.
Edward Knudy,
Yes.
Margaret Shepherd.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Okay, so item 4B.
Yes, so 4B, I wanted to provide the opportunity for our new board members to introduce themselves. They're all here in attendance tonight after very short notice, which is a great sign for the board moving forward, I think. We'll have some new faces and some new blood. And judging from tonight's barely quorum, it's definitely needed. So at this point, I guess I'll ask Mr. Blackwell to come up if he chooses to, followed by Mr. Gallen, who are both members of the board. Third will be Mr. Gustafson, who is the first alternate, followed by Mr. Brown, who's the second alternate. Mr. Blackwell?
Good afternoon. My name is Corey Blackwell. I'm a lifelong resident of Riviera Beach. I was just newly appointed to the P&Z board. I'm a freshly retiree of Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office after 26 years, and I look forward to working with this board and our commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
My name is James Gallen, and I'm also a lifetime resident of Riviera Beach, and I look forward to joining you guys.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for volunteering to serve.
Hello, my name is John Gustafson. I'm a new resident to Riviera Beach. I've been here about 5 years now. I look forward to adding some value to the board, as well as hopefully making the city grow in a positive direction. Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
Good afternoon. I'm Anthony Brown. I've been a resident of Palm Beach County for 30 years, or a little over. I have been a resident of Riviera Beach for a little over 10 years. I am here. I'm ready to serve. All right.
Glad to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard, all of you.
Is there any other board members that would like to say any greetings to the new members? Ms. Shepherd?
First, I would like to thank you for choosing Riviera Beach. Some of you say you're new. Been here a few years. If you've been here a year, you are family. So I'd like to say thank you for coming on board, and I really looking for fresh, new ideas, because you are fresh, new faces. Thank you again for coming aboard. Thank you so much.
Any other board members? Welcome. Moving to adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Move to adopt the agenda with the changes that have been proposed by Mr. Gagnon.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Renee James,
Yes.
Tragic McCoy,
Yes.
Edward Canuti,
Yes.
Margaret Shepherd.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Okay. Approval of minutes from February 9th and the March 23rd workshop meeting minutes.
Move to approve the minutes with any necessary changes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Renee James,
Yes.
Tragic McCoy,
Yes.
Edward Canuti,
Yes.
Margaret Shepherd.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Okay. Moving into unfinished business.
Yes, tonight under unfinished business we have two items, letter A and B. Letter A is an application from Equitas Management Group LLC and Thomas Engineering Group LLC, staff number SP-16-16, requesting site plan approval to develop a single-story, 8,247 square foot retail building on 0.92 acres of 1.93 acres of vacant commercial land located at PCN number 56 43 42 28 31 015 0010. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. DeAndre Bradley, our principal planner, to provide the board with a presentation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. DeAndre Spradley, principal planner. This particular presentation, first it will be staff presentation, and then following me, the applicant will come up and do their presentation. Just to give an overview of the project, the applicant is requesting site plan approval to develop 0.92 acre of a 1.93 acres of vacant commercial land. They are proposing to build a single-story, 8,247 square foot retail building. Here's a site location map. Here's the aerial map. The adjacent uses and description to the north, there are vacant commercial uses. That particular property has commercial future land use and general commercial zoning. To the south, there is the public works facility and it has community facility, future land use, and zoning. To the east, there are industrial uses. The future land use for that particular area is commercial, and it has a general commercial zoning. To the west, there are also industrial uses, and there's an industrial future land use and limited industrial zoning. The subject parcel has a commercial future land use and a general commercial zoning. This particular project is consistent with and compatible to the city's comprehensive plan and land development regulations. City services such as roads, water, sewer, and garbage collection are currently available to the site. Adequate parking has been proposed by the applicant. There were no departmental objections from staff. At this particular point, staff is requesting the Planning and Zoning Board to consider the information presented and make a recommendation to the City Council. And at this time, I will ask for the developer to come up and do their portion of the presentation.
Good evening. My name is Dwayne Dickerson. I'm an attorney with the law firm Dene Miskell Backman. Offices at 14 Southeast 4th Street, Boca Raton, Florida. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Equitas Management Group, LLC, as well as Thomas Engineering Group. As previously stated by staff, the property is located on the southwest corner of Blue Heron Boulevard and Avenue L, as you can see there. The property size before you tonight, which includes the site plan, is approximately 0.92 acres, and that's the portion you see there in the white. It's part of a larger parcel, which is approximately 1.93 acres, which you see in the red outline there. It's currently vacant, and the land use is commercial. The zoning for the parcel is general commercial, which is CG, and the proposed use is 8,247 plus or minus square feet of retail building. The specific request before you tonight is to allow for site plan approval to develop the single-story 8,247 square foot building on the 0.92 acres that I just showed you, which is the smaller portion of the larger 1.93 acres of the vacant commercial land, as well as to allow for a plat approval to facilitate the development of the retail facility. As you know, usually site plans run consistent with the plats. This is an aerial so you can see the area, the specific parcel, as well as the surrounding parcels and the zoning designations. So as staff discussed, you see directly to our north is general commercial zoning district. To our east is general commercial zoning district. To our west is general commercial zoning district, as well as some industrial. And then on the south, you'll see the industrial, as well as the community facility, which is the public works building for one of the public works buildings. With the future commercial development parcel, you'll see on the west side of this current application, unfortunately, because there is an active moratorium and there is no application for that portion, we haven't had an opportunity to market it. Of course, we want to understand what the new regulations are going to be so we can actively market that vacant land and develop it as well. This is just a synopsis of the uses that are permitted by right in your CG or general commercial zoning district. Of course, all non-residential uses within the CN district, as well as you'll see highlighted in red retail uses, including but not limited to those lists of uses there. So the use that's proposed tonight, the retail building use, is permitted by right. And what I mean legally by right is that there are no special approvals that are required. This use is compatible with the adjacent properties. It's compatible and consistent with your land development regulations, as well as compatible with the city's comprehensive plan. So that's a use that's permitted by right without any additional approvals that are required. This is the site plan, once again, for your orientation. Blue Herons on top or to the north. Avenue L is to the right or to the east. And so you'll see the access that's proposed is off of Blue Heron Boulevard, which is a right in and a right out. And then on Avenue L, that's a full access. So that's left in, left out, right in, right out. As you'll see, the site plan provides for parking as required by code. It provides for open space, landscaping, setbacks. There are no variances that are being requested to accommodate this site plan, no special exceptions that are being requested to accommodate the site plan, no conditional uses. All parking, setback, landscaping, access, building height, and all other land development regulations and comprehensive plan requirements are being met with this application with no additional requests. This is just a picture of the elevations that you'll see for the building. So on top is the front elevation, which is the north, which will be fronting Blue Heron, and then the side elevation on the bottom, that's the west elevation. So you'll see the look of the building. This is the elevations continued. So on top you'll see another side elevation, which is the east elevation. And then on the bottom you'll see the rear elevation, which is the south elevation. And then this is the plaques, the Avenue L Retail at Australian and Blue Heron. That's the name of the plaque. As discussed, this is a ministerial plat approval, which is consistent with the site plan, which provides for the access points and any other designations that are required by the city and or the county. And then this is the second page of the plat. As you can see, it just shows picture is consistent with the site plan as it's being proposed. A few things I wanted to add, and I'll be brief. I'm almost done. In addition to this plan, there are improvements that the applicant has agreed to, including new sidewalks, new curb and gutters, upgraded water main, and this is all on Avenue L. This is in conjunction with the staff and the improvements that they've requested. So on Avenue L, you will see new sidewalks along the frontage of our property. You will see new curb and gutters. We have to upgrade the water main system as stated on the east side of Avenue L. And I also wanted to point out with respect to traffic that we provided a traffic analysis to the city, which was reviewed by your city officials as well as to the county. And you'll see in your backup materials there was a letter that's from Quasi Bari. He's a senior professional engineer in the traffic division with Palm Beach County. Name spelled Q-U-A-Z-I, last name Bari, B-A-R-I. This letter was sent to Mr. Gagnon on March 14, 2017, and it states in part that the access that's proposed is a right-in, right-out driveway connection on West Blue Heron Boulevard and full access driveway connection to Avenue L. And it states, based on our review, the traffic division has determined the proposed development does not have significant peak hour traffic impact as defined in PVC TPS on the roadway network and therefore meets the traffic performance standards of Palm Beach County. So they reviewed not only our analysis, but they reviewed our site plan and our proposed access points and have determined that we meet the standards of Palm Beach County. Additionally, I just wanted to point out a few very important sections in staff's report. In part, as part of the background materials, it states that on September 29, 2016, Equitas Management Group LLC and Thomas Engineering Group LLC submitted the official site plan application, which is SP-16-16 to staff. City departmental staff reviewed the site plan application and provided corresponding comments to the applicant. All comments were addressed by the applicant, and city staff has no objection to the site plan application. It goes on to say, in part, the Community Development Department reviewed the site plan application SP 16-16 for compatibility and consistency with the city's comprehensive plan and land development regulations, and found that the proposed plan was in compliance. And lastly, in part in the report, under compatibility, it says the applicant's proposed project is compatible with the surrounding parcels. So I just state that to tell you that we are consistent with your land development regulations. We are consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and this application is consistent with the law. And so we respectfully request that you approve the site plan and the plat as submitted. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have, and I'd like to reserve a few moments to address any comments or questions that you raise. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, question.
Recognize, go ahead.
Can you remind us of your name?
Yes, sir. Dwayne Dickerson.
Mr. Dickinson, you spoke about the sidewalks and the water main.
Mm-hmm.
That was a condition?
Our engineers here, was that just a voluntary upgrade, or was that part of the staff?
Request by engineer.
That was a request by the city's engineering department to make those improvements.
And was that utility engineering?
Water main, yes.
The water main that is on the east side of Avenue L was a utility department request.
Curb and sidewalk was by Terrence.
Curb and sidewalk was by Mr. Terrence.
Terrence Bailey, the city.
Mr. Terrence Bailey, the city engineer.
So you guys are going to actually make those improvements to the water main, or is it, how does that work? I don't understand how you can make an improvement to the water main.
Well, when you, and if you have specific, the city engineers here, Jason Gunther, or I'm sorry, the project engineers here, Mr. Jason Gunther. But when this project comes online to accommodate the water and that's going to be coming into the project, sometimes you may need a bigger pipe to accommodate more water to support the facility. So that is something that we've agreed to do, is to upgrade that water main that we will be connecting to on Avenue L to allow for the proper water to the facility.
And
as well, it's one of the older asbestos pipes, and we all know that, and so it is being upgraded along with this improvement to bring it up to the current materials, which is a better material.
Okay, my question is, and I understand the water main, but I'm trying to understand whoever your GC is, that Equitas, I guess, contracts with, they're responsible for replacing the city's water main?
Jason, do you want to speak to that?
Good evening, Jason Gunther, Thomas Engineering. Office address is 125 West Indiantown Road, Jupiter, Florida. As part of our GC who's building the building, we'll have several subcontractors, one of which would be an underground contractor that would traditionally do your underground piping for your water services, your sewer services, drainage like that. They would also get necessary right-of-way permits through the city to connect into the water main that's in Blue Heron, running parallel PVC or ductile iron main, a suitable material for today's day and age, down our frontage while leaving the existing water main intact, so we're not taking away water from existing customers, tying that in once it's cleared the health department testing and procedures, and then being able to cut the existing water main out with a new water main that we just put in and now in service, and remove that, or grout fill and abandon the existing water main.
Okay, I guess what I didn't understand was it was said that we are going to replace the water main, and I just wanted to make sure that it was a utility contractor that the city used as opposed to a GC. And I was wondering, do you guys actually have a GC that goes into the public roadway and replace a water main? So I just wanted to get clarification that you are using a.
We are doing it. We're doing it at our cost.
At your cost, but
at the
city
request
contractor.
of the utility district, Leighton Walker, and he'll be approving our plans, and they'll be inspecting it, making sure we're doing it in all the right ways of the city, and making sure the city's interests are looked after.
Good enough. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Kennedy.
The pipe that you're replacing, you referred to in the write-up, it said a clay pipe, I believe. Is that the asbestos pipe?
Yes.
Okay. And they also said it was raw water. So I was a little question. Is that just utility drinking water coming in, or is that sewerage?
The water main that we're replacing is potable water.
Okay.
There is a separate 30-inch water main that runs down the frontage of our property along Blue Heron Boulevard. We're not connecting into that at all. That's actually going to, I think, a treatment plant. But that's just in the frontage of our property. But we're not engaging that water main at all with our construction activity.
Okay, but there was a comment from utility that that was a problem for them. So is that...
Yes, we did agree to provide an additional 5-foot wide easement so they have optimum maintenance rights for that pipe should, for whatever reason, they need to maintain or get to it.
Okay.
But we're not digging it up or touching it.
Okay. Thank you. Question on the second parcel that are you planning to develop that, or is this something that is going to be sold off and developed by someone else?
We would, in a perfect world, I believe we would like to develop that, but unfortunately, I can't represent that one way or another to you tonight because with the moratorium, we don't know what uses are going to be permitted, and so it's difficult to understand what we can do with that until we get through that process.
Sure, understood.
Thank
So, one comment, just an aesthetic comment. Looking at the east elevation, which is probably the second most viewed elevation, it seems that there's something we could do to that, or you can do to that, to make it a little bit more attractive. You know, the front is the front, and that's okay, but the south elevation looks a lot better than the east elevation, and only Public Works is looking at the south elevation. So my suggestion is that there's got to be something you can do architecturally that's, you know, not prohibitive to make that a much more attractive looking wall. You know, I'm looking at it and seeing a blank wall with three double doors.
I'm taking good notes, and I will definitely have a conversation with our design team.
And if I may, those are actually what they call like Fox windows because of the layout of the store. I believe this is where the refrigerators will be for drinks and things like that. So you really can't do any real windows in this particular location.
No, I understand. But what I'm saying is if you look at the south elevation, there's kind of a decorative border along the top that breaks up the whole wall, and you know, makes it look better. And what I'm suggesting that it would be, I think, in the interest of people driving Blue Heron looking at that wall, have something a little more attractive done to it.
Madam Chair, may I approach for one moment? I would like to show the landscape plan, and there's a significant amount of landscaping on that side that I think will help to beautify that elevation, if I may show you.
We don't have a image for that we can put up on the screen.
It's part of your backup materials. It's sheet.
If you go 2 pages right after the elevations.
Yes, sheet L-2.
Because this is recorded, I think it would probably be in the best interest if we, showed it up on the screen that way.
So if you'll see on the right side, which is the east side, substantial landscaping on that side to make sure that that's aesthetically pleasing.
Well, I would just like to pass that the landscaping is still going to be a little bit lower than the building, top of the building, and some kind of treatment up there. Obviously at this point it's voluntary on their part, but it would improve the aesthetics when you're going west on Blue Heron.
Yes, sir. And one of the representatives from Equitas is here tonight, and he gave me the thumbs up. So we will look at that and see how we can accommodate your request.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
No other questions?
Okay, I just want to make sure, Jeff, that we didn't have any public comment cards, because I didn't receive any for this item.
I don't believe we received any tonight.
Okay, so we're going to continue with the board questions.
And Madam Chair, if I may, if the board desires, you could make that as a condition of approval for them to either add a few columns or something more architecturally pleasing on that particular elevation.
So noted. Ms. Shepherd.
Yes, Madam Chair. I did bring it up at the last meeting, the concerns of public work being in the back of this project. And my concern was why you did not think of putting a wall up there. And I think I made mention because of the storms and everything that comes through the state of Florida, and the gas tanks are back there, the city trucks are back there, and I just look at the storm and the wind, and I'm just afraid that the trucks will blow over there or something in your neighborhood. And I'm just wanting to protect the Public Works Department. I just have a concern about that. Could you address? I know I'm kind of stumbling around it.
No, that comment was passed on to me. I think the good news is if you look at the aerial, let me see if I can pull my presentation back up. So if you, let me see if I can get this, it was a little cleaner. If you can see where our building is located and where the Public Works building is located, we designed it in a way that we would create maximum separation between not only our property line and our building shifted on to the north and fronting Heron Boulevard, but then if you look at the distance separation between the Public Works building, they looked at that and our design team is very comfortable that it won't pose any safety or nuisance issues even the way it's designed. But they did look at that, and the building was shifted towards Blue Heron to make sure there's a nice separation there, which would not cause any negative impacts to our facility and uses, as well as to protect Public Works and make sure that there are no issues there either. So they did assure me that this design would not cause any negative impacts on Public Works.
Madam Chair, if I may opine on this particular matter. Jonathan Evans, City Manager, Riviera Beach. One of the things that's going to be coming before the council, I would say probably within the next 60 days, is the discussion with regards to the Public Works site and looking to architecturally redesign that site and then eventually move forward into construction. So I would anticipate here in the next couple of months we will be having a more substantive discussions with the council, and then ultimately that site plan will be coming before the Planning and Zoning Board. So that particular site, I would say probably in the next couple of years is going to be completely renovated for the purposes of our new Public Works facility because it has exhausted the end of its useful life. So that particular facility, what you see today
That's an
in the
understatement.
next couple of years will not be the same facility. So we will relocate some of our operations to be more consistent with the needs and demands of what our community needs for public works. So the decision shouldn't really be predicated on what we're going to do over at Public Works, because that is going to be something that we'll be bringing before the council and this board here, I would say, in the next couple of months.
Good to know.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Continue?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Another thing that bothers me, over on Broadway and Blue Heron, are you aware of the Dollar General over there?
I'm familiar with that area, yes, ma'am.
Would you guarantee us that if the Dollar General that you want to build will not look like what's over there? Because it's, once again, I don't see a separation. I'm still at the wall. It just don't look nice over there. And I think the one on Congress, they had a little problem because they didn't want to cut the trees on the back of Congress, and I think that development made a lot of comments about they don't take care of that, once again, wall over there. Is that something that you all are really going to look at, maintaining that property? Because it's on Blue Heron. It's the main drag of the city. What can you really guarantee the residents to make sure your Dollar General don't look like that or have problems?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, this product is not Dollar General. That's a different brand. This is actually Family Dollar.
I'm sorry,
So,
you're correct.
so-
Family Dollar.
And I just say that to say, unfortunately, I can't speak for their business operations, but I can speak for my client, who's the contract purchaser, Equitas, and this end user, and that they are a multi-million-dollar, if not billion-dollar company, and their goal is to have nice, inviting variety stores where people feel comfortable and safe coming to and shopping. So it's very important in their corporate model to have well-maintained, nice facilities, and then the property owner as well is going to be adamant that this site is well-maintained, because guess what? If all goes well, we'll have a future development right next door. So it's in our best interest to make sure that this site is awesome, so that one, we can market the next site and get an awesome tenant there as well. So that we have a vested interest in making sure this is done the right way.
Well, I thank you for that. And once again, let me clear the air. I said Dollar General. It's kind of on my brain today because I visited that store.
Yes.
It's open now, so I was over there today. And I want to make sure that the residents understand and hold you clear to your word that you're going to make sure that this particular store is maintained. I understand it's a franchise,
Yes.
but the name, everybody look at the name. They don't look at what's behind the products that's going over it. That was just my only concern, is Public Works. And, I got a clarity on that, and just the structure and the look of that piece of prime land here in Riviera.
Yes, ma'am. Your concerns are very fair, and we've expressed them to the contract purchaser, who will be the property owner, as well as to the end user, who will be Family Dollar, and we're on the same page here. This is something that we want to be a community asset, and obviously we're in for the long haul because we would own the parcel directly adjacent to it, and it's very important for us to make sure this is done correctly. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Kennedy?
No, I have no other questions.
Mr. McCoy?
Nothing, Madam Chair.
Just if you could pull up and show the lighting, because I didn't see where your lighting scheme or security cameras for this.
Mr. Gunther, do you have the photometrics plan? If not, we can maybe bring it up in the master plan set. But I'll tell you that with lighting, and that there's the photometrics plan, and there's a code requirement on the foot candles that the light has to be at or be reduced to once you get to the property line, so as there's no glare or spillage off of our property onto adjacent parcels, and we fully satisfy all of your code requirements there. I'm not exactly sure what the foot candle measurement is. Sometimes it's 0 at the property line, sometimes it's 0.1, but whatever that measurement is to satisfy your code, we've met that. So there will be no glare or spillage. Another good thing I've noticed with the lights, the modern technology, is you can do almost anything. You can put that light almost anywhere you want it to go. Obviously, we need it for safety. We need to make sure people can get to and from their cars safely. Also, I'm sure your police department would tell you, the gentleman here is 26 years police department, he'll tell you that the police officers need to be safe in the visibility as well. So you have to find that balance where they can drive by and see what's going on and make sure things are safe, but that's not a nuisance to adjacent property owners. This site fully meets all the photometrics, and there's no issue with spillage or glare of our lighting systems.
What about your security cameras? Or do you plan on having extra security, or spoken with the police department? What's the plan for that?
I'm not sure what the exact security plan is for this facility. I will tell you, in my experience, it's always a good idea to partner with the police department, not only to allow them to come on the site, but to make sure that you're running a nice site so that they feel confident and comfortable, driving by and seeing what's everything. And also, we usually, the store manager will try to have a relationship with the local community as well as with the police department so that they can prevent issues. We don't want to be in a point where we're stopping issues once they've started. We want to be proactive so that we're preventing issues before they start. So I will pass that message on to corporate that the board has expressed that we make sure that we're running a very safe operation and that we're coordinating with city officials, including the police department, to make sure that happens.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dickerson.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any more board comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to move that the board approve this recommendation with all of staff's recommendations and the additional recommendation that the applicant develop a decorative treatment to the east elevation similar to the south elevation.
Is there a second?
Second for discussion. And I guess my question is from Mr. Canuti. I certainly don't have a problem with supporting it, but I have two things. The first one, I wanted to make sure that, and I know that they say that they are committed to making, or I guess to reviewing it is what they said, to revisiting it. And I just don't want the condition to be so restrictive that if it doesn't happen, then that's the end of the site plan. So, I don't have a problem with supporting the motion, but if they're committed to doing that, and, it may or may not be possible, or, I don't know, but, there may be something else, and I just didn't want to kind of, in my opinion, agree to stipulate something until we know all of the nuances and what may come up, or if it's actually possible.
No, I understand that. I think they've kind of indicated that they're willing to do that, but willing and doing are two different things. We've seen that on this board a lot of different times where somebody says, "Yeah, no problem," and that was the end of it. In terms of what it is, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's basically just the treatment that's similar to what they did on the south side. So, it's in the plan, it's, architecturally it doesn't seem to be, all that radical to just improve that. So, I would like to stick with it so that, in effect, even though they agree, that we get it done.
Madam Chair, if I may respond.
Yes, Mr. Dickerson.
Thank you. To use a legal phrase. Mama didn't raise no fool. And I say that because, one, I know I have to go on to your city commission. And also I know that I'll be before you in the future at some point if all goes well with development of the parcel just to the west. So the only reason with Mr. McCoy's point is I'm not the architect. The architect's not here tonight, and I would hate for him to tell me, Dwayne, I can't do that because it is a fire safety issue. I can't do that because it's a load-bearing wall and it would affect the structure or something like that. So I don't want to overcommit to that. But like I say, the representative for the applicant is here tonight. We've discussed it briefly. He's given me the thumbs up. I assure you that we will look at it, and if there's anything that we can do that's reasonably cost, of course, and that's and that it doesn't affect the structure or any issues with the code, we definitely will look at that before we come back to City Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Dickerson.
Madam Chair, if I may, also when this item would come before the council, it would say that the planning board approved this item with this specific condition or stipulation. Mm-hmm. So it would be advantageous for the applicant to make the modifications and then proffer that to the council. If they don't do that, staff will say that the site plan is consistent with what the Planning and Zoning Board approved, but the condition that the approval was offered was not met to staff satisfaction. So that will be communicated, and I think you have on the attorney's word that they're going to look at this and be able to offer some items to the council to help address the concerns of the Planning and Zoning Board.
Okay.
Follow up.
Go ahead, Mr. McCoy.
Well, now that it's been laid out that that's how it'll be presented to the council, I don't have a problem with supporting it, Mr. Canuti, but I would offer if you could just amend to spell out that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan, the land development regulations, as well as to its adjacent uses in addition. Because I kind of found in a number of different cases when we just rubber stamp and approve, it almost seems as if there's no real findings or there's no real review by the board other than us saying vote to approve. But I would ask if you are willing to amend the motion just to include that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan, LDR, and its adjacent uses.
Okay, I don't have a problem with doing that, but I think that's already in the body of everything we've done. But I will amend it to say that the treatment would be consistent with our, comprehensive plan, the LDRs, and in compliance with all code.
I renew my second.
Say again?
I renew my second. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Edward Canuti.
Yes.
Margaret Shepherd.
No.
Tragic McCoy.
Yes.
Renee James.
Yes.
That motion passed with one dissenting.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to Riviera Beach.
So we're going to do the replat, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Item D.
Another presentation.
Yes, letter B is an application from Equitas Management Group LLC and Thomas Engineering Group LLC, staff number PA-16-05, requesting approval of a plat for property located at parcel control number 56, 43, 42, 28, 31, 015, 0010, totaling 1.93 acres of land to facilitate the development of a single-story, 8,247 square foot retail building on 0.92 acres of 1.93 acres of vacant commercial land. At this time, I'd ask Mr. Spradley to present the plat to the board.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. DeAndre Spradley, Principal Planner. Again, the applicant is requesting to develop 0.2 acre of a 1.93 acres of vacant commercial land, and they are proposing to do a single-story, 8,247 square foot retail building. This particular replat is needed in order to facilitate the development. The plat was reviewed and approved by the city's plat review consultants, and at this particular time, I request the Planning and Zoning Board to consider the information presented and make a recommendation to the City Council.
Okay. Does the applicant, would you like to come up and say anything?
For the record, Dwayne Dickerson on behalf of the applicant, attorney with the name Mystical Backman, offices 14 Southeast 4th Street of Boca Raton, Florida. I would just like to please request that the PowerPoint presentation that was made for the site plan be placed into the record for the plat approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding the plat.
Thank you, Mr. Dickerson.
Thank you.
There's no public comment cards, so I'll state that for the record. So we're going to move over to board comments. Ms. Shepherd, do you have any comments?
None.
Mr. Canuti?
No comment.
Mr. McCoy?
Nothing, Madam Chair.
And I have no comments as well. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the replat, Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Edward Canuti,
Yes.
Margaret Shepherd,
No.
Tragic McCoy,
Yes.
Renee James.
Yes.
That motion passed with one dissenting.
Thank you. Move over to your business. There is none. You're welcome, Ms. Dickerson. On to general discussion. There's also no public comment cards submitted for general discussion. I'm sorry, for public comments. So staff, is there any correspondence?
No additional correspondence tonight.
Okay, so item C, nomination of chairperson and vice chairperson.
So at this point, we would open the floor for any nomination of chair and vice chair. Again, as I mentioned at the start of the meeting, we do have new board members that have not yet been sworn in, so it's up to the current board whether or not you'd like to move forward with this action now or postpone it. If it's the pleasure of the board to move forward with this action now, we can definitely do so, and we would open the floor for nominations of the chairperson.
Will they be sworn in by the next meeting?
I believe that the clerk's office has scheduled applicants to be sworn in on Monday, so yes.
Okay. What is the pleasure of the board?
I would say we give our new members the opportunity to participate.
Ms. Shepherd?
I would like to wait till the new board.
Mr. McCoy?
I have a question.
Sure.
Why do we have to vote for chairperson? Is this in the charter or is it in a rule that we vote every annual time? Because I know that there's a lot of friction and frustration about voting for chairperson. Is it?
I don't believe there's a specific code section in the city's code. However, just Robert's Rules of Order, I think to have a meeting decorum, you just have a chairperson and vice chair in case that chairperson had to step out or miss a meeting.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Do you have any feelings about voting tonight or waiting?
It doesn't bother me either way, Madam Chair. I mean, but you know, what I will say is this. I think we're only missing one member that's already existing. And I think it would be fair if everyone had an opportunity to kind of weigh in on it. So, yeah, we can wait.
It's fair enough. We'll wait till the next meeting.
Do we need a motion on that or just our agreement? It's good.
I think we have a general consensus, so I'll roll it over to the next agenda.
Okay.
Okay. Planning and Zoning Board comments. We'll go into project updates from city staff.
What I'll do prior to our next meeting, which is anticipated April 27th, is provide a written list of our current projects and current status and dates to come to either before Planning and Zoning Board or to City Council.
That would be a really good idea since we will have new members.
Yes, and as Mr. Spradley mentioned, we also have been utilizing the city website, specifically the community development website, and we posted all of our current development applications online. So that's also another good resource to utilize for information.
Okay. Are there any other board comments? Ms. Shepherd?
None.
Mr. Canuti?
Just one addition to that list, if you could kind of give us a little heads up on what's coming down the pipeline too. You know, not only stuff that you're actually working on, but things that look like, you know, down the road are going to be, you know, coming here.
Yes.
Okay. No other questions?
Mr. McCoy?
Yes. Since we have our city manager, I wanted to find out, and perhaps even staff or someone that would have any knowledge of it, where are we on our independent surtax, sales surtax oversight review committee? Because I've watched both Palm Beach County and Palm Beach County School District organize their committee, and I've not heard or seen anything from us as it relates to the 1 cent sales tax and the oversight. And my specific concern, and you would just indulge me for 1 second, is the exact policies and how this is going to be set up, because I have this concern that I want to make sure that this is an oversight committee and not an appointed position similar to how we're appointed on the board, because the oversight committee has accountability to the voters of Palm Beach County and not necessarily to a council member. So I want to find out, because we knew since November the 9th, and I've not heard anything as of yet, and the county's already, you know, started to, well, projects have already been identified there in the planning phases and architectural phases of, you know, moving on some of that. So I just wanted to kind of find out if that was on our radar. What's the structure? I mean, even if it's not there, or what do we kind of foresee that will take place?
Certainly. Mr. Vice Chair, we've had some preliminary discussions internally with respect to that particular oversight committee, and we're doing a little bit more research. Certainly we wanted to watch what our peers did with respect to how they established the roles and responsibility. And one of the things that we also want to look at that particular oversight committee, at least from my perspective, is to allow for them to participate in the budgetary process with the city. So I would like really to expand their duties, not just to have the oversight of just the surtax monies that the city is anticipated to receive, but also to have a more broad role in the finances of the organization. So we're looking at how do we incorporate that, or if we can in fact incorporate that and serve as a tax and oversight committee or a fiscal advisory board or something that we can utilize from the staff's point of view to help vet, you know, public policy or anything that has a fiscal impact. So we're looking at what the oversight committee and what the rules and regulations are in place, but also seeing if we can add some additional responsibilities and duties. So this is a board that is consistently interacting with staff, and anything that touches the organization financially, this board will have an opportunity to opine on. So this will be something I would envision that would be discussed here probably in May and June, with us moving forward with establishing that and then starting to prioritize how do we spend those pennies money. So that's something that we can certainly bring an update here to the board in the next couple of meetings that you do have, but we have been discussing it internally.
Madam follow up.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And part of what you mentioned is something that I know I've shared here on this board for a number of years, as well as I heard our chairperson mention it. But a part of our function is to make recommendations to the capital improvement plan, and I know, you know, we have some ways to get there. And also, you know, I would reiterate, I would hope that we can do it where it's not just an appointment by a council person, because the allegiance or the accountability almost exists with that council person and not the actual voters. So, you know, if it can be incorporated by selecting a member and an alternate from the Planning and Zoning Board, but kind of think that goes hand in hand with our roles and our function, being that we have a budgetary role in capital improvements as well as a role in, for information regarding any public street or utility or any city-owned property. So certainly, if we could hear back something on that, I was just willing to find out, because I just see so much moving around us, and I wanted to make sure that we don't fall too far behind.
And certainly, there's a couple of options with respect to how do you select that board. You can look at an opportunity if it allows for the administrator to select the individuals on that board and then it's confirmed by the council, or you can go to a lottery system where you put the names into a hat, they're randomly selected, and that is the board. So it is a completely transparent and autonomous fashion. So there's certainly ways that we can do it, and we will certainly look at lessons learned and then take some direction from our peers as well as what the balance of the council wants to do. But this is going to be a very transparent process because it's a very important process. So we will bring this board kind of an update with some options, and then ultimately we will discuss it with the council and see which option that they are comfortable with. But also we will convey the concerns from this board or any other board that you would like this process to be something that is unique and is not the traditional way in which we've gone about appointing.
Thank you. One other thing, is there an update on our Cunningham Park?
That item, I believe, is slated to go before the council at the May 3rd meeting, if I'm not mistaken. Staff and I have had internal conversations with respect to that project, and we really need to move that project forward. What we can do, I can look to bring that. Has this come before this particular board for discussion, and how long ago?
Yes, sir. It's probably been maybe approximately a year at this point, so we can bring it back for information.
If it is the desire of this particular board, we can bring it to you guys again for discussion, and then ultimately to the council. But I would like to get it to the council in the month of May, because time is of the essence with respect to some grant funding that we have received, that if we don't move forward with this project, we run the risk of losing the grant funding.
No. My answer is no. I don't want additional bureaucracy to cause us to potentially lose funding, especially if it's already been through our board and there's really nothing significant. I just kind of want to know where we were in the process, and I don't want to, and I would hope that we don't ask to bring it back here for just information. So that's that. I reached out to our staff and thank our assistant director of community development. I was just curious about when we have new stop signs and new traffic signals placed in the city, I believe that's something that should come before the Planning and Zoning Board. So you're not targeted when you drive down the street that you've known only for 35 years, and now there's a stop sign with no notification to the area residents or anything. But I noticed the flashing light that's on 13th Street in Australia, and I would have kind of hoped that there would have been a little more participation, or at least now that we're aired on our local 18, that folks would have known that, okay, well, that light or that traffic signal will be going into effect on April 28th or whatever that day is, as opposed to a cop coming down Australia and I got you type thing. So that's my comment on that. Also, this was another concern that I had in the Federal Gardens neighborhood, the ongoing traffic of freight trucks in a residential neighborhood, and they generally go in the morning times and in the afternoon times. And I know I was on this board, I think 4 years ago, when we dealt with expanding large family daycares, and I know specifically, at least when we were taking up that item, we've probably approved 2 that's just in that one block. And I was visiting someone over there, and it was almost like you had to wait 10 minutes just to back out of the driveway because there was UPS truck after UPS truck, and then even tractor trailers. And it's really not good for our neighborhood. And I was hoping that that is the reason we have that traffic signal on 13th Street in Australia, as opposed to using, the local neighborhood Federal Gardens route as, a way to get in and out of their facility, because it's really not good for the people that live there, the noise and, just the overall increase in traffic. So I would hope that, at least look at it, because, we talk about it, it really means something when you have to live there every day and you have to experience this day in and day out. It's like annoying. I mean, I've just noticed that Blue Heron has had a large increase in traffic. But to have that kind of traffic on your residential street, and it's all commercial vehicles that are, I mean, you're required to have a CDL license to have, and they're up and down the street, so that's a problem. And, even if there's something that we have to do administratively, we need to have public safety officers there to redirect them to go the other way. And you also deal with the issue of we have three schools on that corridor. So,
We can certainly put appropriate signage there as well as some law enforcement personnel to curtail that behavior. I've experienced that in other communities, so I'm well familiar of those types of issues, but staff will note that and make sure that we inform the chief and take some corrective actions to make sure that that's not a pass-through for freight traffic and those types of things. So we will make sure we make that contact tomorrow, and then if we can provide a memorandum to the board when we do talk with the chief and what his corrective actions will be to address that issue.
Thank you, Mr.
It'll have to be next week. I'm sorry. It won't be tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, just a comment. I agree with Mr. McCoy, but didn't we designate 13th Street, though, as a gateway street for the city when the marina was under plan?
I think this location that we're discussing now is more western. There are multiple industrial uses in the area, very close to residential uses, so I think it's something we need to look at the current traffic patterns. I think it's one large company that is sending most of their vehicles through the area, so it could just be a communication with that one entity just as a stopgap, and then looking back at our current signage package to see what we can do to curtail that from happening in the future.
Yeah, I think there's a Palm Tran depot someplace right there too. So, anyway, that was my only comment. No other comments.
I just have a comment. I want to thank the new city manager for joining us. What a pleasant surprise and opportunity to have you see what we do. Had a small audience tonight, but there will be other nights where we can entertain you better. But just thank you. In all of my years serving on this board, just have never seen this. So I, for one, as a city resident and a longtime member of the board, appreciate the assistance. And I know your day must be long, as most of our days are long. So I really appreciate that you feel us worthy to come out and take the time to join us.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Thank you, Madam.
Is there a motion to...
By the way, that's 2 meetings in a row that he's been here.
Good job.
If there's nothing, Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
So we workshop these items. Oh, but we're not done now. We got a workshop.
Yeah. So should move it to adjourn.
We adjourned our regular meeting. We got a workshop now.
Why is everybody? Yes.
So do we need a court reporter now that we don't take any action?
Good night, future board.
I guess just to preserve the record. Huh?
I think it's valuable to have her for the workshop as well.
All righty, so moving right along. Item A. Free to go home, Walter.
No.
So the workshop tonight, these items were both discussed at I guess our last Planning Zoning Board workshop, which was intended to be a regular meeting, but we workshopped the items because we didn't have a quorum. So during that meeting, there was discussion of having a separate workshop for these 2 items prior to this meeting. However, logistically, it couldn't happen. So what we wanted to do is just take the opportunity tonight to discuss both of the items briefly and get really consensus from the Planning and Zoning Board on whether or not you felt these were things that should move forward to City Council and really just have an open discussion on these items. So with that, if there aren't any board questions, just for the record, the first workshop item is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending Chapter 31 of the City's Code of Ordinances entitled Zoning, Section 31-1 Definitions, and Section 31-551 Principal Arterial Commercial Design Standards Overlay to create standards for single price, overstock, discount stores, and providing an effective date. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Spradley to provide a brief presentation to the board.
All right, DeAndre Spradley, Principal Planner. Just to give an overview of how we got to this particular point, back in December of 2016, the City Council, they enacted a 6-month moratorium for the filing and receiving of any site plans for single price, overstock discount stores. It was a consensus by the City Council as well as the general public that at the time they did not want additional dollar stores or Dollar Trees, Family Dollars, or any type of stores like that associated in the city. And City Council directed staff to basically develop new regulations in order to regulate these type of uses. Just for the public's sake, the definition of the single price overstock discount store that we propose is establishments that sell a broad range of outlet, closeout, discontinued, liquidation, or overstock and general merchandise primarily at a single discount price and or in the low and very low price ranges, including but not limited to food items, alcoholic beverages, apparel and accessories, custom jewelry, notions and small ware, houseware, fountain refreshment, and toys. Just to give an overview of the language that was proposed, this particular language applied only to the principal arterials commercial overlay area. Staff did propose separation requirement of a 1.5-mile radius of existing single price discount store, and this particular distance would be measured in all directions from the point of egress. And existing single price discount stores would be allowed to basically improve or upgrade their facility. And we were proposing that these particular stores will go through the special exception approval process. Just to give you an idea of what the 1-mile buffer, and it is important to note that there is a Family Dollar that is located on Broadway that is not depicted on this particular map, but this shows you what the 1-mile buffer looks like, the 1.5-mile buffer, and here's the 2-mile buffer. The pros of adopting a language that we're proposing, it will potentially restrict or deter the number of overstock discount stores in the city. However, the cons of adopting this particular language, we could be possibly regulating commerce, which is basically unconstitutional. And then once we looked at the definitions, we realized that we will be impacting unintended prevention of other future larger retail stores, for example, Ross, TJ Maxx, or similar stores. This particular regulation will be very difficult to defend in court, and this is going to open the city up to frivolous lawsuits.
You should take out frivolous.
Yeah, because it won't be frivolous at all.
Okay, they won't be frivolous at all.
There will be substantial lawsuits.
All right. And then it will also create potential issues with existing operations such as the Jay's Ministries, thrift shops in the city, Dee Dee's Discount on Broadway. And here are our options. We could proceed with adopting proposed amendments as presented, or staff can work on creating additional architectural and landscaping design standards for retail development along the major roads in the city. And hopefully the intent of doing this here will be to either deter lower budget retail developments from occurring in the city, or attract more higher end retail developments based on the additional architectural features or landscaping design features that we can come up with. And at this time, if the board has any questions, now would be the time we can entertain questions.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. McCoy.
I certainly understand the potential pitfall if you were to create language that is not clearly defined. But if we have a special exception, and there's a component of special exception, in fact, the first criteria when deciding whether to use a special exception is the public interest. And, if that's true, I'm okay with doing that. But to create a buffer of 1 mile, 1.5 miles, and even 2 miles, and I think is a little, that's really restrictive. I would think that, that public interest component will really drive whether or not, that's something that, is well received in our community. Just thinking of it, I don't really know. I know that we have, pharmacies that are built one right across the street from the other, but I don't really know if we're at a point where we have much more spaces for any these low price stores. But as soon as I say that, they probably weren't showing up somewhere. So I don't necessarily support the buffer. I like the fact that it would be done by special exception. So that way we'll have a chance to not limit anyone, but to kind of know strategically where they're placed, as opposed to just outright putting a buffer to say, you can't. 2 mile buffer. If it's a 2 mile buffer, there's absolutely nowhere that they can go into the city, nowhere. So that's why I'm at least for that portion of it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Benetti.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think limiting that what kind of businesses we want to have really I think runs into people's property rights. I mean, if I own a piece of land that's been around for a while, and now suddenly I have the wherewithal to develop it, I can't use the zoning that's already been in place for years. That's a problem, So I think you ought to investigate the idea of a special exception, for some of these things. That might make some sense. I don't know if it does, but the other aspect of it too is in Riviera Beach, how many type dollar stores can the population support? I mean, there's a real competitive factor in there. We've got 4 now, I guess, with this new one, and we've got 33,000 people in the city. And people come from Lake Park and other places, but I mean, there's kind of the survival of the fittest too. But the other side of that coin is we don't have businesses going out of business either. So in some way you want to be able to kind of manipulate the environment so that everybody gets a fair shot, but we kind of spread it around a little bit. So, but I think Mr. McCoy is on the right track, maybe with a special exception for certain things, and I don't know if you can do that. If say dollar stores are a special exception, or or gas stations are a special exception or whatever, which I guess we're going to get to next. But but certain areas that might require a special exception to develop a retail store.
Right.
Okay, something like that. No other comments.
DeAndre, could you go back to the prior slide? See, it's such a broad category to me because you even have Jay's Ministries and thrift shops listed in this area. So to me, I would support the special exception.
Mm-hmm.
I would support it for that reason because it's so broad.
Correct. And what we can do is we can create the additional architectural requirements for retail in the city that are along the principal arterials in the city, Blue Heron, Broadway, MLK. Basically make it to a point where if a developer does come in, and if it is a Family Dollar or a Dollar Tree, it's not looking like the typical Dollar Tree. It would be something where the residents can say, hey, this is actually a very nice facility.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily look like a Dollar Tree.
Right, and we see that in some communities. So, are there any other comments, Ms. Shepherd?
No comments.
A question. It's a pragmatic question. When people come in to address the development of a site, they don't request a permission to build a dollar store. They, if I understand correctly, they want to build a permitted retail facility.
Right, it would be like a permitted retail.
Okay,
That's correct.
and the retail would encompass a number of things, including Ross, TJ Maxx, and other stores.
Correct.
So what we're regulating primarily is who the property owner is going to contract with for his permitted retail store.
Okay.
That gets shaky.
That does.
Because that's what we're doing. That's what it's up
Any
here
type of
we're doing.
retail.
We're saying, yeah, you can have the structure, it's permitted. It's, love to have retail uses, but you can't rent it to this guy.
And so what we may have to do is do it as all commercial development along the principal arterials. You must follow these architectural guidelines.
What if we made the development requirements for retail stores accommodate only stores of a certain size
We could
that
do
we
that.
would like to see, the Rosses and the TJ Maxx, so they would be economically impossible or unfeasible for the dollar stores to build in those areas. So we're not regulating the activity, we're regulating the capability.
Right. I would caution that because
Okay.
then you have places like D's T-shirts where it's right there on Broadway where they may have a 50 by 100.
Yeah, but they're lawful non-conforming use, so they don't really matter.
Right,
They're
but
right
any
there.
new uses along Broadway that could potentially
Okay.
create issues.
Okay. But my point was perhaps we could devise development standards for retail uses that would only be economically feasible for the types of stores you wanted to track on those arterials, those major arterials.
Yeah, I think that DeAndre alluded to this previously, where I don't know if we can single out just a dollar store use, for lack of a better term. So if we go back and potentially look at all of our overlay district standards and just say for any new development within this overlay, whether it's retail, whether it's any of these other potential uses, new development has to meet these standards. So that way, any new development along Blue Heron, along US 1, it's going to be a more finished product. It's going to have higher architectural standards. So we're not singling out any specific user. So all new development will be, I guess, improved development, for lack of a better term.
And you see a lot of communities do that with regards to some of their major roadways into their communities, especially those gateway roadways. to ensure that you have quality developments. If you look at some of the Walgreens construction throughout the county, you can see different siding of the building that you'll be fronted on the sidewalk, parking's in the back. So there is certain opportunities that we have to be able to elevate the design element standards and be able to start changing the development patterns in our community by increasing the architectural requirements for some of the development in our community. And that also goes with some of our city projects. As we look to reconstruct city facilities, how do we make sure that we are consistent with higher quality architectural standards, so then you would actually see other parcels that will fall in line when they go to redevelop. So this is certainly, I think, a step in the right direction for us to consider. And also, we don't want to get in a situation where you're regulating commerce or attempting to regulate commerce or creating any adverse impact for those individuals that are coming in to conduct business in our city, because in most cases, in state statutes or any ordinance or resolution doesn't require them to divulge the type of business they're coming in. So we may not know until the ribbon cutting. The cases that we do find out it's a dollar store, it's usually just divulged based on conversations with staff, and then we're able to communicate what it is.
We could also consider adding in there that on these arterial roads that the business fills a real need in the city. And that would give them a priority if it truly fills a need. So,
and one of the things we can certainly do is to look to partner with the CRA and look for opportunities to incentivize those types of operations that we're looking. If we're looking for retail or commercial, is there an opportunity for some economic incentives, or some, if we're looking for green manufacturing or those types of things, what can we utilize to leverage those opportunities? So that's part of the discussion, I think, that we're going to have with the community when we start talking about the comp plan, and what do we want our community to look like in the next 20 to 30 to 40 years. So those are all opportunities to look where our commercial nodes are, how are we going to look at our industrial park, how are we going to look at our working waterfront. All those conversations are going to be had with the community and this board. So we have a great opportunity to really set the foundation for what Riviera Beach is going to look like from now, for the next 40, 50 years.
Well, that's a good point, because that's exactly what we did on Singer Island on that one project that was just here a couple months ago, where in combination with the CRA, we were able to raise the number of floors, which suddenly made the whole project very, very attractive and feasible for a developer to come in and plunk down his money. Mm-hmm.
So, is there a consensus of the board that which of the options you would like to do? Would you like to proceed with the adopted, or with adopting the proposed amendments as presented, or would you like for staff to go in and look at the architectural and landscape design standards?
I would say the architectural standards for the entry roadways, and special exception for all others.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Okay. That's the direction for that.
All right, letter B is an ordinance of the City Council, City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending Chapter 31 of the City's Code of Ordinances entitled Zoning, Article 1 in general, Section 31-1 definitions, and Article 6 supplemental district regulations by creating Section 31-559 entitled Regulations for Filling Stations, which are also known as gas stations, in order to provide and amend definitions and provide a separation requirement between filling stations to promote diversified development patterns within the city, providing for conflicts, severability, and codification, and providing for an effective date. So This item on its face is very similar to the discount store conversation we just had, but there's also multiple items that are very dissimilar as well. What I want to present now is just a map of the city. This is Blue Heron Boulevard running east and west. Here's I-95. And what the green dots represent are existing gas stations or filling stations. These are all public filling stations, so it's not for Public Works, for example, that has the ability to have a filling station. So these are open to the public, so general commercial business activity. The red circle indicates a radius of 2,000 feet from the intersection of Interstate 95 and Blue Heron Boulevard. Interstate 95 is an integral evacuation route, so the proposed setback or separation requirement would not be in effect within this area, so that way there would be no burden on that evacuation route, and as many filling stations that the economy could support could be located in that area. But as you see throughout the city, all of the orange circles are a 1,000 foot radius from existing stations. We did go back in, and part of our discussion during our last workshop was the fact that we missed a filling station on President Barack Obama Highway, so we added that to the map as well. So that only filled in the gap further to demonstrate that we really do have, we're reaching a point of, in my opinion, oversaturation of filling stations throughout the city. It's getting to the point where we have some primary intersections that 3 out of the 4 corners are filling stations. So I believe we're starting to run a risk of losing all of our available land for just this filling station use. And I think one of the biggest differences between a discount store use or general retail store use is that the shell of the building can be occupied by other tenants in the future rather easily, while a filling station is going to have an infrastructure that provides really just for that gas sale component. So it's really difficult to facilitate renovation of those sites in comparison to just having a new tenant move in and do a different retail use. So the city currently has filling stations fall under a special exception approval requirement. That's required in a few different zoning districts, mainly in general commercial. Following the last workshop we had, I also went through 8 other different municipalities, and I'll pull that list up now. I just kind of did a comparison and did some further research to see what other regulations existed. So obviously the top location is Riviera Beach, and we currently require special exception approval. However, there is no separation requirement that's provided. So the ordinance that's being proposed would create a separation requirement between identical uses. So as provided, it doesn't separate uses from, let's say, daycares or churches or schools or things of that nature. It's just a separation from an identical use. Other municipalities have gone as far to have separation from similar uses, separation from other uses similar to daycare, schools, things of that nature. Other municipalities, for example, Lantana has a special exception or conditional use approval similar to us. However, there are no separation requirements. One of the most complex regulation that I found was Juno Beach, so I guess we'll start there and work backwards. But they actually have almost a triangulation approach where you have to identify locations of fueling stations or convenience stores, which are sometimes defined in a similar manner in other municipalities. And again, Juno Beach has this triangulation approach for over a mile from one another, so they're severely limiting this use in the city. Other locations have identified architectural standards for fueling stations, and also they start looking at the number of fuel pumps at the locations. So there's some corporations, and their model is to put 30 fuel pumps on site, while others have a smaller footprint and they're just looking to have 12, let's say. So that's also something we can look at regulating as far as the number of fuel pumps. The current code structure that's being proposed doesn't go into that detail, however. So those are just a few of the talking points and some of the research that staff was able to produce. So this time I'll open it up for board comments.
I have a question.
Yes,
Did you find anything for Palm Beach? Because I think I heard that they have no gas stations on the island.
I would have to look. I don't think I looked at Palm Beach. So I'd have to do further research on that municipality.
I know they have one near the city hall. I can't think of others.
Right.
And Juneau, I think, only has 2 gas stations. And, one at where the A1A splits off and one that's by the Bluff Shopping Center, but I'm not even sure if that's Juneau or Jupiter at that point. So.
And again, Juneau has some of the most, I guess, complicated or most restrictive regulations that I've found so far. So that could be what?
On everything.
Possibly, yeah.
And I would say most of our gas stations also have a convenience store component.
It's true.
So then that would fall under retail.
Well, the way that we have, let's see, I'm going to pull up the amendment because this has the definition. If an applicant wanted to come in and just do a convenience store use, that would technically just fall under retail. However, as soon as you add a fueling component, that's where this filling station definition comes in, which is up on the screen now. So some municipalities bundle the 2 definitions. The way that the current ordinance is written for the city, it's not done in that manner, but it's something that we could look at. However, the main intent of this ordinance now is just to have the separation from the filling station uses, to have at least a starting point. So if we did have a new applicant come through the door on Monday and submit application, we'd at least have some sort of regulations to provide separation between those similar uses.
How many inquiries do you get on, say, an annual basis for gas stations?
It is probably right now, I'd say a top 5 use inquiry.
Really?
Yeah, and we've had most recently, let's say I'll go back to the 7-Eleven proposal at the corner of US 1 and Blue Heron. This regulation would, being that there's a gas station just south, that would prohibit a filling station from being put on that lot. We've had conversions of existing fueling stations to other business entities. So there's a 7-Eleven on Military Trail. We've had Wawa that was recently approved and has been supported, and it seems to be extremely popular throughout Palm Beach County.
And just to piggyback off of what Jeff is saying, the site plan application that the board approved this evening, they were initially wanting to do a gas station right next door to that particular lot. And at the time, staff just said, no, that's not a use that we're looking for. So.
Yeah, so I've forgotten that conversation, but that's very true. So the parcel that was adjacent to the site approved tonight, they actually had a preliminary drawing, I believe it was for the adjacent site. Mm-hmm. So we had mentioned that we were looking at regulations and separation requirements and that we didn't think the public would support that use, so they've backed off on that. But again, if this is proposed and doesn't move forward in any manner, then they could come back in and apply and go through a special exception process and maybe or maybe not be approved.
Okay, comments. So we don't have any options right now, like the last slide. It was just totally.
Well, the What the proposal is right now is creating this new subsection within our supplemental district regulations. So it's just a very simple subsection that talks about regulations for filling stations, and it identifies just the 1,000-foot separation buffer between any active filling station and a new filling station that would be proposed. And it also calls out the exemption within 2,000 feet from the intersection point of I-95 and Blue Heron.
And why is that? I just don't see that can really accommodate.
Well, it was added because, again, I think an argument could be made that it's vital that the city allows for filling station uses specifically on evacuation routes. So being that Blue Heron and 95 would be a primary point of that evacuation route, we wanted to make sure that we accommodated those uses within the city.
So the 7 that's within that 1,000 feet isn't enough?
Well, this also could potentially impact, land use over the next 50 years, let's say, if there's never any other amendment. So it's kind of shifting, it's starting to shift where these filling stations could be proposed or should be proposed.
But the reason for that was because it's an evacuation route, or?
Yes.
Well, I'm not convinced. Well, I'm not, excuse me. I'm not, let me clarify that. I just respectfully disagree. In fact, now that I thought about it, it's 8 within 1,000 feet of.
Yeah, and again, this is staff's first approach. It was an attempt at identifying the importance of filling stations within the city. And I'll pull the map up again. So I just didn't want the argument to be made that staff is completely disregarding this use and trying to preclude it from the city. So that's definitely not the intent, but including this 2,000-foot buffer area where these rules and separation requirement wouldn't apply would combat that argument really instantaneously.
There has to be some kind of industry standard for gas stations, not government, but an industry standard that says X number of population, both permanent and transit, support X. It's kind of like restaurants. They know that people are going to go to restaurants within a certain radius of the restaurant, and then their attendance diminishes after that. There's got to be something like that on gas stations. So
I'm sure there is. I think that what's happening more throughout Florida is that the larger corporations have the capital to come in, build a brand new facility, and outcompete existing filling stations. So if they can come in and sell gas in a brand new convenience store for 2 cents less a gallon and take business from existing locations, they're in essence trying to outcompete the existing locations. So you have the potential of having one business outcompeting the other. The difference between the retail business and the filling station business is now you have really a skeleton of fueling stations that's now not used if they're outcompeted. And it's much more difficult to find an end user for that site.
Mr. Gagnon, are we missing a gas station just east of I-95 on the south side of the road? Because I'm almost certain there's one on both sides, one next door to the Wendy's and one right across the street from Wendy's. And I only see what I believe is one there. Not that one, I believe that's Wawa.
There's a BP.
Right here.
In a shell.
Yeah, I'll have to look.
There's a Shell there.
Yeah, it's a shell next to the Wendy's.
Yeah, I think it's a Marathon across the street where your arrow is.
Yeah, so and that's what
right here.
No, that's a Shell.
That's on the north side of the road.
Right.
But on the south side, there's one as well.
Yeah.
But just from Wawa, where we are at Wawa, right there where your hand is at, from that point going west to Military Trail, there's 8 gas stations. 50 years or not, I don't see that there should be an exemption, because if you allow them, they will squeeze it in on top of they'll put it on top of a roof, but it's like, how many more do we need, in that little short block? And that's I hate to, I've heard it said that the chlorine plant could have been a terrorist target, but that's definitely a hot spot, coupled with the fact that I believe the school district has has his bus compound facility, and then on the opposite side of that is the school district's maintenance facility where they have propane gases as well as additional fuel. So I don't support that exemption. I just don't see that as absolutely necessary because we have more than enough. And if you probably just kind of gaze over that map and just brainstorm a little bit, there may be some other one that, because, but, it's just quite a bit. And I like the fact, and what's interesting, and I kind of thought after our last workshop that I was like, well, was I inappropriate for asking for the layout of the churches in Riviera Beach? But seeing today I'm not, because the town of Lake Park requires 1,000-foot buffer between any kind of school or places of worship or anything like that. So I'm not too far off, and not so much for the filling stations, but just for other uses that it just is not compatible to put maybe a wine and spirit store next to or a church or school or a church, so I don't know, maybe we're at that point where this is another one of those things where we just we have to really be careful how we put it, but I just don't know if we can accommodate anymore. And certainly at the minimum, and I don't know if this is in here, but is this proposed to have a special exception requirement as well or no?
The use currently requires special exception approval.
Oh, it does?
Yes.
Okay. Now, there's not a moratorium on it currently, is it?
Technically, depending on the location where it's proposed, if there is a convenience store proposed with it, I think the moratorium actually applies to Blue Heron and US 1 in its entirety. Yeah, so currently, if it's on those corridors, the existing moratorium could apply. But once that moratorium goes away, or if a proposal happened outside of that designated area, staff doesn't have any sort of separation requirement to rely on to slow down the saturation of this use in the city.
Okay. Will those discount stores that we spoke of just in the item prior, will that encompass a Walmart? Because, Walmart is like no other store. You can call it a hardware store, you can call it you can call it an automotive. They're discount.
I'd say maybe.
And the reason I asked, because I thought, and I don't know how factual this is, but the area where the trailer parks was at, I heard that there was proposed, or the question, or it was someone that was interested in bringing a Walmart, exclusively the grocery store, to that trailer park. But I thought maybe it was just a rumor.
I haven't heard that one yet, but maybe.
I don't want to tell someone no if they have a vested, permitted right, but I think we need to get out ahead of it. And I couldn't quite get a chance to read in depth, but I understand we're doing something with our comprehensive plan and DEO just at our next council meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct. Basically what we will be doing is requesting the city council to grant the city manager the authority to transmit the letter up to the DEO. And basically this letter is for state requirement to say that every 7 years we must look at the comprehensive plan to see if we want to amend it. And basically the letter is saying that the city desires to amend the comprehensive plan at this time.
And I guess at that point, then, however that process starts, we'll tackle that or be included on that in the planning and zoning.
That is correct. And just for informational purposes, Councilmember Miller Anderson will be having one of the 6 public workshops associated with the comprehensive plan on May 2nd, and it will be held here in the City Council chambers. Of course, we will be sending out public notices. We just met with her
yesterday, or maybe yes, that was yesterday. So we haven't prepared the notices yet, but do anticipate that coming down the pipeline.
This is like a charrette type form of.
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah. So are we looking to give you any kind of direction, or is staff requesting any kind of direction on this?
Yeah, I believe that this ordinance is important, so I'm really looking for P&Z support to bring a final product, or at least an active product, to the Planning and Zoning Board for potential approval. If it's a consensus of the board that the board feels is an oversaturation of this use in the city, then I think we can proceed in that manner.
Do you support taking out the exemption, Mr. Gagnon, or not currently?
It's something that could be removed if it's pleasure of the board. Again, the reasoning behind incorporating it was discussed previously. It's not something that has to be there. I don't think any other municipality includes something like that, so we can remove it.
Well, if you have some logical reasoning or you have some technical knowledge on why it should be there, then I don't have a problem with it. I just kind of thought it was, I didn't know if it was really necessary, but I support definitely the 1,000-foot buffer, 1,000-foot buffer in between the existing filling stations. So I have nothing else other than definitely what's already there. So
Are you saying you're not supporting the special exception?
Oh no, that's fine. Okay. Special exception is already in place, so yeah, that's fine.
Does it make sense? You mentioned something about bundling. Does it make sense to bundle the special exception with convenience stores, or is that two different issues?
My suggestion to move forward at this point would be put something in place now, and if it's something where the board wants to look at it in depth during the comp plan process and then development regulation process, then we can do it at that point. However, right now there are no regulations as far as separation requirements. So if we don't have something in the books or have a process moving forward, then we're very open for a developer to come in and apply for another filling station.
Well, I would support the 1,000-foot, minimum 1,000-foot for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'd even take a look at, future 2,000 feet or 1,500 feet or something like that. But is there any precedent for a city saying, we have enough gas stations, we don't need any more? And if you'd like to come into town and expand, buy one and do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, there have been situations where there's total number of kind of permits issued for a specific type of use. It's not something that the city currently uses, but it's just a growth management strategy that's been used, I guess, throughout the country in other circumstances, but it might be slightly advanced to try to incorporate something like that right now. It's a good idea, though.
I also agree with the 1,000-foot minimum.
Now,
So,
my question now is there I don't remember what industry or what type of use specifically that we did it for, but there's something that we've done if a business goes out of operation for, I think, 6 months or something, then it becomes non-conforming.
We have a legal non-conforming section of our code. So if you have a business operation that's currently legally non-conforming, so something that doesn't meet the current zoning regulations, if it goes out of business and stops operation without a business tax receipt or business license for that 180-day period, it basically cannot go back at that location. So it would
even a fueling station?
I'm sorry?
Even a fueling station?
If there was a fueling station that was currently legal non-conforming and it was inoperable for that time period, it could apply to a fueling station as well.
Is that, from staff's perspective, is that something that we could do here?
Well, it would apply automatically So that section of the code, if there's any legal nonconformities created by this separation requirement, it would apply to that situation in the future if it were to arise.
Okay.
Any more comments?
No comment.
No comment?
No comments from me.
That's all it is.
Thank you.